Okay, so here we go, part two. We've got our environment set up for a quick bit of prototyping, and today we're going to use a couple particular features. We're going to use the Edit Poly modifier in the stack, and we're going to use something called the Array tool. Okay, so let's make a quick box in the scene that we can work with. There it is, and I'm going to just give the dimensions, the following dimensions: 1000 centimeters by 1000 centimeters by 500. So there we go. That's kind of built in relation to our AI bot to make it kind of architecturally appropriate in scale. It's actually probably a little bit on the big side because it's 5 meters tall. But however, we'll go with it. Let's apply our material to it. So I've got the box selected, choose my material, hit the little assign material to selection button, and there is my very primitive box. Quick F9, let's have a little look at it. Nice, straightforward, simple AI bot, and let's call it a building component. So let's say we'll call it room 01. Okay, it's not really a room, but it's a unit. It's a building unit. Just want to be clear that it's above. I think that's just a rendering issue. Occasionally it looks like it's actually beneath the ground plane. I think that's just a scale rendering issue. Okay, so here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to get used to the Array tool. If it's not already available in your scene or on your screen, just right click in a empty grey space on the toolbar and choose Extras, and then it'll appear, and we're going to use Array. So I'll just make sure that everything is currently zeroed out so that we all start from the same position. And the only thing I'll do is I'll add the number 6 into the ID count there. I'll hit the word preview, and you'll see a little red icon or pink icon there that's telling me that there are currently 6 additional boxes being created in the scene, but at the moment they're all sitting on top of each other, and we won't be able to see them until we separate them out. Now we know that our box is 500 centimeters high, so in the move and Z axis I'm going to type in 500 and hit the tab key, third key down on the left hand side of your keyboard, and basically that will lift those future boxes up in the sky, up in the Z axis by 500 units. So there's a ID count of 6, depending on what you want to do, but I think 6 is probably a good place to start. Now the only other thing I want to do is I want to rotate them. Now I'll just show you this, then I'll have to backtrack to show you a different way of doing it. Basically I want to rotate them round. Now there's one simple way of doing it, just there it is, but you'll notice that they're currently, if I put in 90 degrees there, they all currently lower that 90 degrees. I'll put in 180. Oh, let's get something a little bit off. Not quite 90, not quite 180. Something in there, I think. If I just hit OK, that's what I end up with. A kind of twisted stack. It's not a bad place to start. I'll start there and I'll go back. Okay, so I've got little cubes, all kind of like little boxes, so they're all arrayed straight up with a little rotation on them. Now, in the going back to room 01, I'm going to add an Edit Poly modifier to that room. Okay, so subobject polygon level activated. Choose one of the polygons, and I'm going to use the Inset Tool. So I'm going to click on Settings, and I'm just going to make sure it's by polygon, and I'm just going to inset it by, shall we say 50? That's probably not enough actually, let's say 100. Inset by 100 and say OK, that looks good. No, it's too much. Undo that, Control Z, I'm just going to inset by, make sure it's by polygon, and I'm just going to, 50 was probably better actually, 50. And just say OK, there it is. Okay, now you'll notice as I've done that
this box also has been inset by 50. And if you rotate round, you'll find so has that one, so has that one. They all have. But because they've been rotated in the array, that particular face is pointing in a different direction. Good, that's kind of useful. Now I'm going to extrude it. So again, I'm going to make sure the extrude is by polygon, and I'm going to extrude it a -100 and say OK. And there's my little tiny extrude, which is kind of pulling the polygon inside. So if I do a quick F9, just pull that down a little bit, quick F9. I have a sequence of boxes that have been rotated on their kind of central axis, and I'm starting to give them features now. So the feature I've given it is a inset and a minus extrude. Okay, good enough. I'm also just going to go to perspective and say show save frames. Now I can see what's going to be rendered and what isn't going to be rendered. So if I zoom out a little bit, I get a nice picture of it. So F9, one more time. He says F9. Can I have an F9 please? There we go. Okay, so there's my little character on the floor, and there is a kind of theoretical stack of contemporary living apartments. Let's call them rooms at the very least. Okay, let's redo that. So this time round, I'm going to take my room. I'm going to come out of the sub-object level to start with. I'm going to make a clone, and I'm going to call this one room number 00. Can't call it 2 because I've already got a room. I can call it room 02. That might get a bit confusing, so we'll call it room B. Room B01. Okay, that'll do. And I'll just delete the edit poly from room B01 just to show you what I'm going to do here. So in the top view, so hit T for top, Z to zoom to that object. I'm going to hit F3 to go into the wireframe mode. I need to move this central pivot point of this object, so I'm just going to do that real quick using the hierarchy tab here. Click Effect Pivot Point, and I'm going to decide to put it right up there in the corner. So just zoom in, make sure my positioning is pretty accurate. That looks pretty good. I just want to be as close as I can to being on that little corner spot there. Good. Right, now we can go back to perspective, and I can go out of F3, and this time round I'm going to add my array one more time, but this time round hit preview. You'll see that the rotation is now going around that axis point. So before it was going around the middle of the box, now it's going around that corner point. So I'm going to put in 90 degrees, and I'm just going to have a quick look at what that generates. So it kind of rotates once, and then twice, and then round 3, and then 4, and then 5. Back to the top. So it kind of gives me a nice... Now, that's not bad. That's kind of interesting. I'm also going to, I wonder if I can add a second array, so that's the 2D array. This time round, you'll see straight away that the kind of, I turn it, I go off, you'll see them vanishing, turn it on, there they are, kind of reappearing beside it. So what happens if I make 3 arrays? Now the whole thing's becoming... You know what, I'm going to say yes to that just so I can see it in a shaded viewport to make sense of it. Okay, so that's becoming kind of interesting. Yes, like a tiered object. So I'm going to go back to room B01, that one, the second one, and I'm going to add my edit poly like we did before. So edit polygon. I'm going to choose sub-object polygon selection. I'm going to choose that window and that window. And I'm going to do my inset again, make sure it's by polygon. and I think the inset amount was minus 50. Sorry, the inset amount was 50. I think I'm right in saying it was 50. Yeah, I think that's right. And this time I'm going to add my extrude, make sure it's by polygon, and I'm going to say minus 100. Let's say OK. There it is. Now I'm getting something interesting. OK, so I'll take that first stack. So my first stack, I'm going to do something here to help me organise everything that's becoming a bit messy in there. I'm going to choose room 01, room 02, room 3, room 3. Oh, room. I'm going to hold the control key while I'm doing this. Room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to put them in a group, and I'll just call it group 1. That's fine. And the other one, room B, I'm going to put that in a group, and I'll just call it. Let's do that again. It's not kind of liking that, so I'll just see it, and it's not letting me do it. Don't know why. Let's have a little look. Interesting. I'll just have to. It's because I'm in the sub-object mode, I think. That's what it was. Yep. So we'll call that group 2. So I've got 2 groups now. I can turn off number 1 and just deal with. So group number 1 should be hidden because I've just turned it off, but for some reason it's not, so I'll just turn them all off. Okay, now I've got my new structure. Undo that. And I just want to zoom in, get a bit of an angle on it, do a quick F9. Okay, so I've got some kind of funky new structure with windows looking out in different directions. That could be useful depending on sun position, etc. If you're an architect, we may have some issues in there, but it's a little bit noisy in terms of there's a bit of an additional filter noise in there, but we can get rid of that later. This is just to do some fast studies. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for a moment. I'll put that on stop. So just a quick recap. We've used the Array tool. We've used the Hierarchy tab in order to move the pivot point across. And we've used the Edit Poly tool just to inset and extrude inwards different parts of the geometry. Looks kind of interesting, just as a very fast way of prototyping potential spaces. Okay, I'll stop there for the moment.